Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the Blackmagic ball python. The Blackmagic actually consists of two genes, and that is the Black Pastel, which is a dark morph, and the Mojave. And when you actually mix them together, you get a really impressive dark snake. And kind of the interesting thing about Blackmagic is if you actually work other genes into Blackmagic, sometimes you get some really interesting, sometimes really unexpected results as far as working single genes into the Blackmagic. And today I want to jump over to the internet and I want to show you some of these really unique combinations working other genes into the Blackmagic ball python. Alright, so I'm going to jump over here on Morphmarket.com, and this is the Blackmagic. Blackmagic is slang for the Black Pastel plus the Mojave. And keep in mind the Black Pastel is actually the dark morph in this combination. That's what's bringing out a lot of this really dark black in the snake. And the Mojave really enhances a lot of the colors kind of popping out of the snake. And keep in mind the Mojave is also in the blue-eyed leucistic complex. So if you actually take the Blackmagic and you breed it to something else in the blue-eyed leucistic, like a lesser or a Russo or the bamboo or something like that, you'll actually end up with an all-white snake with blue eyes a certain percentage of the time. So you kind of want to stay away from breeding to anything in the blue-eyed leucistic if you want to avoid the all-white snake. Makes for some really interesting combos. And essentially what I want to do is I want to take some of these more common genes and I want to add it to the Blackmagic so you can see the effect that the Blackmagic has on a lot of these genes. And if you kind of want to stick with the dark side of things and you want to go for some really impressive dark snakes, one of the more awesome combinations you can make is mixing the Blackmagic with the blackhead. The blackhead makes some really impressive combos, and it seems like the more and more impressive dark snakes I've seen, a lot of them actually have blackhead in the mix. And it's kind of interesting with the blackhead, a lot of the combos end up with a really jet black head and really super dark background on a lot of the blackhead combos. And this is what happens when you mix the Blackmagic with the blackhead. Take a look at this snake. That is really awesome. You get this really interesting snake. It's actually two dark morphs on top of each other. So you actually have the Black Pastel and the blackhead, which makes for an interesting combo. And then you have the Mojave on top of it, which really brings out this really strong stripe on the top and kind of lightens the color a little bit. Makes for a really impressive combo. And I'd say probably a lot of the streaking on the sides probably coming from the Black Pastel. So here is the spider ball python. The spider is probably one of the most visually impressive standalone morphs. A lot of people actually ask me, what is in the spider? How do I make it? And it's actually just one single gene by itself. It almost looks like it has like Enchi and Calico and everything in it. It's pretty amazing that it's just one gene. You actually breed a spider to something else, half the babies actually come out as spider. And if you actually work spider into the Blackmagic, take a look at this. When I first saw this thing, I just couldn't even believe that the spider was actually in there. I'm like, what kind of sorcery is this? It actually completely, almost completely eliminates all of the spider pattern. You get a little bit kind of creeping through a little bit, but you can definitely see it makes a really kind of an unexpected combo working spider into the Blackmagic. Makes for a really impressive combo. So here is the banana. The banana is actually a co-dominant mutation. So you breed banana to something else, 25% of the offspring come out as banana. You can actually make a super banana if you breed two of them together. The super banana almost looks like the regular banana. It's hard to tell the two apart. And here's what happens if you take a banana and breed it into a Blackmagic. And take a look at this. It is definitely really darkening the banana. It makes a really interesting combo. It's kind of interesting, some of the genes like, you know, like leopard or something like that, that's a darkening gene. A lot of times the leopard will just darken some of the darkest parts of the snake, but if you actually work Black Pastel into the mix, it actually darkens the background of the snake. It's really one of the true dark morphs, the Black Pastel. And when you mix it in with Mojave, a lot of times it'll change the pattern on the side of the snake. Sometimes you get like floating alien heads or like keyholes on the sides of the snake. It makes for a really interesting combo. And I'd say when you mix banana in with almost everything else, you can definitely tell banana is in the mix. Banana is really visually dominant. You can definitely see all three genes in this combination. Here is the albino. The albino is actually a recessive mutation, a little bit more difficult to work with. You breed albino to something else and you get all normal looking snakes that have one copy of the albino. They're het for albino. You have to actually breed the offspring back together to get the visual albinos with 2 copies of the gene. Here's what happens when you mix an albino in with the black magic. Take a look at this. This is pretty impressive. Essentially what it does is it keeps the albino color and the red eyes, but it completely changes the pattern and the amount of white on the snake. It's kind of interesting. It has this line right down the top, which I think is coming from the Mojave, and then the black pastel with the albino. I've noticed a lot of times when you actually mix those 2 genes together, black pastel and albino, a lot of times it'll really increase the amount of white in the albinos, and a lot of times it'll actually increase the contrast, and sometimes it'll actually bring out some of the orange color in the albino. Makes for a really impressive combo. This is one of the most impressive albino combos that I have seen. So this is an enchi. The enchi essentially reduces the amount of pattern on the snake. Sometimes the enchi will actually bring in some of the color, like the oranges and yellows, depending on the lines of enchi. And some lines of enchi don't really reduce the pattern that much, but you can see in this one, it is significantly reduced. Pretty much wipes out all like the Roswell gray alien head patterns on the sides of the snake and reduces the pattern down to these little lines. Sometimes it can almost be tiger striped in some enchis. Here's what happens when you mix enchi in with the black magic, and take a look at this. This is completely unexpected because essentially you're starting with an almost jet black snake with a line right down the top. You mix in enchi and it completely changes the whole appearance of the snake. I would say this is really unexpected as far as mixing it in. You can definitely tell the black is in there from the black pastel, and a little bit, you can see maybe a little bit of the Mojave with a little bit of the floating alien heads, maybe the little keyholes, and the enchi reducing the pattern. Makes for a really interesting combination. Here is the orange ghost, and I'd say as far as all the lines of ghost, I really like the orange ghost the most. Essentially what ghost does is it really reduces the contrast of the snake, kind of gives it almost like a soft sheen over the whole snake. And with the orange ghost, the older the snake gets, it really brings in kind of an orange color, which is a really awesome characteristic of the orange ghost. And the orange ghost is recessive, so it's a little bit harder to work with. Similar to albino, you actually need 2 copies of the orange ghost to actually get a visual. And this is what happens when you mix orange ghost in with the black magic. Take a look at this. This is kind of interesting. It almost gives you the original appearance of the black magic, and then it brings in kind of an orange color and then reduces the overall contrast. Gives it a really creamy, soft color. Makes for a really awesome combo. Here is the pinstripe. The pinstripe is a dominant mutation. I really like the pinstripe. I actually produce quite a few pinstripes every year, and it's probably the brightest gold hatchlings you can actually ever imagine. It's almost like you really can't capture the brightness of a gold pinstripe hatchling on a photo. You actually get a snake like this and put it in your hand, and it's almost glowing. It is so bright gold. It's a pretty amazing morph. Here's what happens when you mix pinstripe in with the black magic, and take a look at this. This is one of the most amazing pinstripe combos that I've seen with the black magic. This is the black pastel, the Mojave, and the pinstripe, and it's kind of interesting. It almost completely eliminates most of the gold, almost turns it kind of like a yellowish, kind of a coppery color. And look at the sides on the pinstripe. I think that's coming from the black pastel. And it's almost hard to see the Mojave in here. It makes for a really impressive combo, especially if you're working with dark genes. So this is actually the pinstripe with the pastel. We also call it the lemon blast. I produce some lemon blasts every year because I have several lemon blast females that I'm breeding stuff to, and I always end up with some lemon blast. Makes for some really amazing combos. This is what happens when you take lemon blast and work it into the black magic. Take a look at this snake. This is like totally unexpected. There's so many combinations that I've actually seen working in with the black magic that I'm like, it's kind of scratching my head. that they actually put the right picture in here for some of these combinations over here on Morphmarket. It like completely changes the pattern and the color of the snake. You get this really strong line right down the top. I'm thinking that's probably from the combination of the pinstripe and the black probably from the pinstripe and the Mojave. The Mojave tends to have the stripe down the back, and the black pastel really has a serious influence on the color of the snake. Kind of washes out all of the color and the pattern on the snake. Kind of really interesting how all four genes are actually working together. This is the black pastel, the pinstripe, the Mojave, and the pastel. So here is the fire. The fire is pretty awesome. I actually produced my first fires this year. I actually have a fire pied, a visual fire pied that I bought from Justin Kobelka quite a few years ago, and I actually decided to breed it to a normal and just produce some regular fires to kind of prove it out and see if there's anything else in there. There actually wasn't anything that I could see. Made some really awesome fires, 100% head pied, and the fire is a really awesome gene. Essentially what it does is you can definitely tell the difference between a fire and a normal, because the fire has more of this kind of a caramel looking color versus like a normal ball python. You can definitely tell the difference. And if you actually mix fire in with other combinations, essentially what it does is it lightens and enhances the colors in a lot of combinations. This is what happens when you take the fire and you work it in with the black magic, and you can definitely tell the fire is in there. It looks like a black magic, and it's kind of interesting. In a lot of these black magics, I've seen some with really strong lines right down the top, and some of them actually have more of a dashed line coming right down the top. So it's kind of variable from one snake to another. But you can definitely see the fires really lightening the background, the really kind of lightening the dark color of the black magic. And I kind of want to go one step further. I wanted to show you this snake here. This is what happens when you take fire and mix it with yellow belly. You get a really bright snake. If you're actually going towards the bright, flashy snakes, you can use genes like fire and yellow belly and pastel and orange dream and make some really super bright snakes. But if you actually take the fire yellow belly and mix it in with the black magic, take a look at this snake. This is really awesome. This combination here. This is the fire yellow belly working in with the black magic. You can see it's a little bit kind of a soft black color that's probably coming from the fire, and then you have the yellow belly and the black pastel and the fire, and it's really awesome combination. And the Mojave's in there too, so you really get some interesting streaking on the snake. It almost looks like it's kind of like a leopard lesser kind of a combo in there, although there's no leopard. Makes for a really awesome striped snake. So here's the last one I wanted to show you. This one is just kind of blew my mind when I saw this over here in Morphmarket. This is actually the Pastel GHI, and the GHI stands for Gotta Have It. And essentially what the GHI is, it's a really dark morph. It's another dark morph, and it really jumbles up the pattern, probably more than any morph I've ever seen. You add pastel to it, and a lot of times you'll take a GHI and you add pastel, and you get a really dark morph that's really bright. I'd say this one's probably not as bright as I've seen some of them, and I think maybe they fade out a little bit as they mature. But if you actually take the Pastel GHI and you mix it in with the black magic, take a look at this. This is totally unexpected. I couldn't even believe that this was actually this combo. It makes for an almost metallic patternless snake that is almost a gold color. This is probably one of the most amazing snakes that I've seen with the black magic. Talk about sorcery in this snake. It's like I can't even wrap my head around how all these genes are working together to produce this solid, patternless, gold, metallic snake. Really incredible combination. Alright, so it is time for the question of the day. And H asks, would you ever consider coming to a reptile show on the East Coast? And that is a very good question. As a matter of fact, I went over to the internet and I found this list of reptile shows in the United States. And believe it or not, there's actually multiple reptile shows every single weekend in different states all across the United States. You can almost take a world tour and do reptile shows every single weekend, just hitting reptile shows. And some of these states actually have reptile shows every weekend for most of the year. It's pretty amazing. They're really into the the reptiles. And here in Colorado, you know, usually I try to go to most of the shows. I don't actually sell at the shows. In most cases, I think I'm only doing one show a year now, but I try to hit every single show just to kind of check it out and kind of meet people and see what new people are making as far as ball pythons and see all the other animals. It's a pretty awesome experience at the reptile shows. The only problem is traveling out of state. It costs a lot of money in airfare or travel. You know, if you're thinking about cars and hotels, things like that. I would actually like to do it at some point, but you know, I'd probably have to sell a lot more snakes to come up with the money to actually travel on a regular basis to a lot of these places in the United States. It would be pretty awesome to actually travel all around the world and hit worldwide reptile shows. You know, maybe if my YouTube channel kind of changed a little bit, and instead of doing like morph videos, I could do like a travel channel, traveling around hitting reptile shows worldwide. That would be pretty awesome. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.